Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of The Diary Room, a little project we have going on here where we are trying to find the best player in Big Brother history through some randomized matchups, placing 6 house guests into each episode, sending 3 through to the next round, and leaving 3 behind that are no longer in the running to be the best Big Brother player of all time. So it's been a lot of fun so far, and we have another great guest with us today. First, I'm Matt Lagori here with you, alongside Aman Adwin. How's it going, Aman?
Hey, super excited to be back. Welcome back to the Diary Room. I'm very excited for our guest today. I'm sure all of you probably know who this person is, and just really excited because this person brings a wealth of knowledge to the show. And I've had the pleasure of being a guest on several of his videos on his YouTube channel, which has always been so fun. So we're really, really excited about our guest today.
Yeah, very few of our guests that aren't players, previous players, are people that will often get mentioned in the house themselves. Can probably count them on one hand, less than one hand. And our guest today is definitely one of them. It is the great Peridiam. Peridiam, how are you?
Oh, thank you guys. Yeah, I guess I've been mentioned a couple times. I know the first person who ever did it was Ian Terry, actually, on Big Brother 22,
Wow.
which I'm happy
Oh,
about.
I
I was like
14. I was like, you've been doing this that long?
yeah, no, that would have been wild. Yeah, that's different. It goes way too deep. I'm happy to be here. I mean, I'm like I said, like this Big Brother for me, I have way too much useless information rattling in my head. Been doing this now. You know what? Given the posting of this podcast, it's actually the seventh year anniversary of my channel starting. I started October of 2017, and here we are in 2024. So every week for 7 years, which honestly is a little bit weird and strange, but it's cool. And I'm happy to be able to be invited on these podcasts and sit around and talk about who knows what for an hour and a half.
I mean, usually, of course, we do our plugs at the end, but if anybody hasn't checked out Peridiam's YouTube channel, I don't know how you've missed it, but maybe you're a new fan to the show, which is obviously always possible. And if you're looking for, any of those in-depth thought conversations, going deep into a lot of the winners and a lot of like the more successful players and hacks and all this kind of stuff, some of these challenge hack videos that have been referenced again, not only by players, but on various podcasts, you got to check out Peridiam's YouTube channel, which I believe you can just type in Peridiam to your YouTube search and you'll find it. So
yeah,
names in the corner.
It's so good. I stumbled across them several years ago, and they have become like to the point now where like because I'll do like periods every like May, June, July. I start getting back into like my Peridiam mode, and I'll start watching a bunch of like YouTube or a Big Brother Peridiam videos to the point now where so many of them are like sort of like comfort videos for me now. I just have them like on in the background. I've like listened to them like 10,000s of times while I'm doing my work or whatever. So yeah, just I love all your content. It's just
good elevator music. No, I get it. Yeah. It's just background me blathering on about all the buzzwords in Big Brother and just saying random names. Like I know that name.
Well, can you talk about the series that you've been working on lately? The Winners series.
I've been waiting to binge them all. I haven't watched one.
And I started biggest, and then I got on the same page.
My biggest one. Okay, so like I'm releasing. Actually, you know what? Yeah, as of the posting of the podcast, we're gonna have a compilation that I think is like over 6 hours of all of them in one video with timestamps. So it'll be a lot more manageable than clicking around. Basically, I for Winners at War for Survivor, I wanted to recap all of the winners for people who just didn't watch all the seasons at the time. It was like 40 seasons. So I put that all together. Then I did it after the season aired. I did all of the Survivor winners. I always wanted to do it for Big Brother. And I just waited for 4 years to do it. And I wasn't sure how big of a task it would be to recap literally every Big Brother winners game, but I honestly bit off more than I could chew because I started working on this project in like June and I didn't finish it until the end of September. So I'm publishing them on a weekly basis, but each video is essentially the length of like 3 long videos, which means I've done like 3 months worth of my usual content in a single week. For the whole summer, basically. It's been a lot, but I'm recapping every single Big Brother winners game, start to finish, and as best as I can, making it as short as possible, but also getting in as much juicy bits. And my biggest one yet would be the one that you guys haven't watched it, is the Taylor and Xavier and Jag. That one is think it's like an hour and 10. I think it's the longest one. There's just so much to talk about. It's a lot. So, but I've had a lot of fun doing it, and it has absolutely, like, I almost want to rank the winter games now because they're all fresh in my mind. And I actually put together like a loose leaf draft of like, if I were to rank the winners based on like who I think played the best overall game, based on what I know, what I've seen, like in my recap, I'm like, I think I could do it pretty well with some conviction in my like analysis. But it's been a lot, and I'm like, now I realize why it took me 4 years to finally get around to doing this.
No, that's a huge undertaking. When I saw that you were going to do that, I was like, well, that I know that this man probably just put in like hours upon hours upon hours
so much
of research into this. So like, kudos to you, and that's exactly why you're the perfect guest. For the show.
Which is why we're going to be talking about Jose versus
like what a matchup, or what an episode Kirsten had with some polls there. Peridiam, though, I feel like we could genuinely, interview you for the entire 90 minutes that we usually spend with the person, just talking about that kind of stuff. But I guess like the general question that I do want to ask, because I'm sure people are interested, is just like, when you're going about this, like what is the process like for one specific video? Are you like doing heavy rewatches, or is all of this just like so stored in your brain that all you need to do is write down your thoughts and then cut clips and put it all together?
A little bit of both, a little bit of everything. So when I rewatched all of the seasons with my wife, who had never seen the show before, I decided to take notes because I had already seen all the seasons. So I was like, okay, I'm rewatching. This was like, honestly, like 6 years ago. And I didn't really know, I wasn't doing it for this particular reason, but I thought, the winners are important. I did make 6 years ago a video about Dr. Will and about Danielle Reyes, even though she didn't win. But I took a lot of notes while I rewatched, and I just started taking notes through every season of the show as I rewatched all of them up until I think my wife jumped on board with season 20, I think was the first one she watched. So I had notes for almost every season. And then just coupled with, like, once I started my channel, I got way more in depth. I've learned 10 times more about the show starting a YouTube channel because I've had to do the research and spend the time making sure I get everything correct, than being a casual super fan who's sort of in the know but doesn't know doesn't remember it all. So it's just been like a combination of a lot of different things. Rewatching it, honestly, not as much. Like the more recent seasons, I have referenced Taryn Armstrong. I've gone back and pulled up live feed updates from season 20. And it's so fun to watch. I think I've seen both of you guys on live feed updates from 5-6 years ago with Taryn. And it's just like recapping, Bailey's HOH, Big Brother 20, just to be like, let me remind myself of exactly what went down and how Rachel got evicted on Big Brother 20. What the hell was that about? Like, what was just to make sure I get it right. So I've done a little bit of that, and I'll give a shout out to Taryn at the end of the compilation video. But it's been like a lot of research in that regard, looking up, like, I've read archives for live feed updates from, not live feed updates, live feed archives from 20 years ago with the old seasons, because those all exist. All those recaps exist from people taking, like, almost verbatim what the players were saying on Big Brother 4, Big Brother 3. So there's a lot of information out there, which is what I love about Big Brother. You can really create like a 3-dimensional understanding of any given day, almost that can get that granular. So that's like a lot of it, which is a lot. My regular videos I put out, like most cringe Survivor players, doesn't take almost any research. So it's very different in how I like approach. And this one just took a lot of time, a lot of effort.
Which you can tell. I mean, you don't need us to tell you this, but Will, anyway, that you can tell how much effort goes into each one of the videos that, again, if anybody's not checking out, you really should be. In addition to any other Big Brother content that you can find out there, you got to check out Peridiam's videos, which are maybe coming to a close as the Big Brother off season begins. Isn't that usually how it works?
Honestly, after the season ends, I got like a review video in me, and then I'll just wait. If we get reindeer games, which I don't know if we're going to at this point, but if we do, maybe I'll circle back. But otherwise, I usually just sort of I pack it up for the summer, and I'll see you next preseason.
Right. Well, obviously plenty of backlog as well of things that people can go back and watch that aren't necessarily from this year. So
for sure. I always wondered that too, Peridiam, just like how much goes into the research, because like you're right, there is a lot. Like if you really wanted to get information on some of the granular details of past seasons, you can find it. Like I suggested to Matt, I was like, for some of these seasons that were a little less foggy, or the ones that we weren't watching Big Brother for a lot of the earlier ones like live, so I was like, there's on Jokers there was like a whole like log of verbatim speech and text for what they were saying. So it really does help flesh out just how much some people's games like had so much meat to them. So yeah, it's a really great job, well done, and a valuable resource for anybody that's
also want to shout out Ethan Amale, YouTuber, another YouTuber, big brother. He has been putting together these, and I will say my like weakest understanding of Winter Games is around where he starts to really pick up the show, which was, I'd say, like Steve, Nicole, Josh era. That's my like where I was probably my most casual in my start. I started on season 12, and I'd say I sort of started to fall off around season 15 or so maybe 16. And then I became very casual, and then I picked it back up again after 19. And that's when I started my YouTube channel. So I will also reference him a little bit, give him a shout out too. Because yeah, watching he does like a longer version of what I've tried to do. And I messaged him before I even started, just letting him know like, hey, not trying to step on toes. I've always wanted to do this. You're doing it, but you're doing a longer version per winter. You've got like an hour and a half for like Jag. I'm like, I don't have that in me.
Yeah.
So yeah, but he's also been somebody that I've been looking up to and watching what he has to say, because I know he's also put the time into.
Hey, yeah, we stand Peridiam. We stand Ethan Amale in this house. We love them all.
One thing that I feel like I don't know if we've talked about this at all on like a main episode or even necessarily off air. It's been a thought in my head that as we get further down the road to like later rounds, which granted may be a couple of years away from us at this point, but I really want to like talk to people that may feel like they are like the Danielle Reyes expert, because I want to hear someone make the case of why she, you know, especially again in those final rounds, I guess, like what it is about her that somebody may pick up, or whether they were there in real time or have like, you know, done the research, done the work to like remember all of the minutia of her game and all that stuff, where, you know, I can go back and rewatch BB3 tomorrow, and I probably will at some point soon. But just to like have all those details that, you know, Peridiam's referencing, and I'm on too, just like that a lot of it exists out there on the internet, but a lot of it may not, or maybe it's hard to find. So I want to talk to people that like really feel like they know these players well. And I feel like that'll be fun when we get there somewhere down the line, because right now we're just talking about Jose. Like,
honestly, I would pay CBS probably an exorbitant amount of money to give me all of the live feeds of every single season.
Oh my gosh,
I would pay.
They would pay you millions of dollars to not have to do that.
I mean, it's all right there. It's just all backlogged. I would assume that they just don't delete, because they used to keep, you know, back in the old days, they used to just keep the last season's worth of live feeds up until the next season's live feeds began.
Now they don't even keep this season's live feeds
up. Yeah, now it's just like one and done, which is annoying. So I would assume that it was recorded and saved somewhere. So hey, CBS, if anyone's listening out there, there are plenty of fans that would pay an arm and a leg to have access to all the live feeds.
Yeah, I would. I'm right here.
I would do it every single season and learn everything that there is to know about everybody's game. Like, I would do that in a heartbeat.
I would just hang it in a museum. You know, there's something to be studied 100 years.
Then I'd be throwing my money at Peridiam to do the work for me and let me know everything that I need to know.
I have put in the time. I will put in the time. I would rewatch the final 5 of Big Brother 3 live feeds just to see what the hell went down that week. Exactly what went down.
Yeah.
We got the edited episodes. I've read some of the archives. There are obviously going to be holes here and there, but man, oh man, like some of the most iconic weeks in the history of the show. Give me in real time. And it's like, that's the best part, because you can just pick out the best parts of the whole series and rewatch that. Like I have the feeds saved for Keisha's birthday. It's like 3 hours. And I think there's a YouTube video.
Yes, somebody put it on Reddit.
I'm like, because I didn't start until season 12, so this was new, but I was like, oh my God, this is my Roman Empire. Like, this is it.
Right.
This is what I think
really
about.
Is.
And it's so, and I've watched the whole thing, and it really is just, it's as good as you think it would be. You get to see in real time Rennie yelling at Jerry. Like, come on.
It's so good.
But then how do you like finish those 3 hours and like live with the fact that you can't keep watching?
That's the down, right? I
That's
don't know.
tough.
You don't.
Again, release the feeds. Release them.
You literally won't be able to get them to do that for BB26, like let alone anything else. But I know what it's like to have dreams. So look, Amon, we're with you. With all that said, so Peridiam, what brings you here today is this call to action to we're going to find 6 players and send 3 of them through, leave 3 of them behind. We were talking a little bit before just about like the concept of this and how it has like so it has nothing to do with like anything that you have done. Like it's not like you have done a thought process of like what's Raven Walton versus Jack Owens, but you have looked into so many of these players in usually in the context of like who are the top 5 best this, who are the top 5 best that, the worst, whether it's in a specific season or overall. But I do feel like it's going to be a lot of fun to have you here to go through random player from this season to random second boot from that season.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes into like, and that's the funny thing. I make these videos, but I always talk about the best or the worst, and there's a lot of people in the middle. I'd say
Yes.
most people are in the middle, and the average big brother player is not often as remarkable as the top 5. So I love the idea that we can like sit down and pick a random person that's probably not in a lot of top 5s or even possibly any top 5s on my channel, and like just chew, like talk about what's going on with them for like, you know, the next 15 minutes. That's something I've always tried to keep in my back of my mind. It's like, it's very easy for Survivor to talk about like Suri 1,000 times, and I can put her on every thumbnail. But at some point it's like, well, okay, let's talk about like what's going on with Michaela. She doesn't get brought up very often in Game Changers. What's going on with that? You know, it's tough to find, and I want to make sure that people want to watch. So this gives us like a great reason. We're just the whole premise to me is like so juicy. It's like randomness. It's just the most random thing ever. And a part of me wants to like, what are the most random Big Brother players? Like who are we getting? And I just
we've had
top 5 most
so
random Big Brother players.
That would be a great video. I mean, you could truly pull through, you know, some of the polls that we've had so far, and we'll have to continue. When a name comes up and it just causes all of us to laugh because we're like, what, who, where, like, where did this person come from? And you know, a lot of people will come on who have studied and watched a lot less Big Brother, I would say, than you, Peridiam. A little nervous about like, oh, I haven't seen these seasons in a while, even if it's a season that, you know, they give us a list of seasons that they're comfortable with, but even still, a player might come up that you don't remember. But the most fun about this is, like you're saying, to like talk about the middle players that we know, the big players, and when we get down the road to those bigger names, like we'll talk about them and we'll give them their time then. But it is just fun to kind of bring back up who's and who are you.
I guess we should also mention that like I did say maybe we shouldn't include Canada for this.
Yes,
is that a thing?
Well, yeah. So well, I can pull up the wheel if we're getting to that point. So today's wheel, sponsored by, no, I'm just kidding, is strictly BBUS today. Now, if you're like, wait a second, I know Peridiam and I know he's watched everything. So we were talking about this a little bit before we got here today, that Peridiam has made a lot of his videos around BBUS, and that is like what he knows. I mean, I guess I should let you explain this for yourself.
Well, basically, I love Big Brother Canada. I actually haven't watched every season. I didn't watch 11 or 12. Ooh. Once they killed the feeds, I went, I'm out, baby. It was nice. And honestly, I don't know if I've missed a lot based on what I've heard.
12 was fun.
I've heard 12 is kind of fun.
Okay.
12 so I know like generally who wins. I don't really know them. And then my memory of a lot of the seasons going, like if you ask me to talk about somebody on season 1 that's like the first half of the boot order, I will.
One is not included.
Is it not?
One is not a part of the project.
Oh, is it not? Wait, BB Can one. I mean, BB Can.
Oh, I think you meant BB one. I'm sorry.
Yeah, BB Can
one. Yes, it is.
Yeah, and so I'm like, I think if you want to get like the most juice out of having me on, I'd probably just stick to US. But I could talk about BB Can, and there's a lot of players I would like to talk about. But because this is so random, I'm like, honestly, and I've watched like Kirsten on the podcast, and she got like a ton of BB Can. I was like, good for her, honestly. She knows BB Can maybe better than anyone, but I was just like, I don't know if I had the choice, I would stick to just the US for me. Not that I couldn't, just that I'd prefer not to if I had the power to make that.
And right now you do. Right now we have a full wheel full of plenty of players to talk about from just US, so that's fine. But I did tell Peridiam off air. I said, look, the next time we have you, if we have a lot more Canada players available, you may not have a choice.
I'm fine with it. I'll do it.
We'll never make anybody steady up.
Yeah, we'll never make anyone talk about someone they literally have not seen a season of. That would just be silly. So that's the plan. So today is all BBUS, BB season Big Brother 2 through Big Brother 25, which is a great reminder. Big Brother 26 has come to a close. Congratulations, Chelsea. We don't know. We're recording this before the finale. We're assuming Chelsea. Who is to say? And if it's not Chelsea, we're all watching this.
Can you
back.
imagine if it's
Whoa!
like Ladina or some shit, and we're just like, what the fuck?
It might be. We, record a little bit ahead of time just to make sure we have our stuff all set. You guys know this by now. So the finale has come and gone. Big Brother 26 is in the books. We will have the 26 players on the wheel very, very soon. It may not be by the next episode, but it will be very soon. We're giving ourselves a little time and space away from the season to digest it all, and we're going to get them on the wheel one day very, very soon. Do not worry. But for now, 2 through 25, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it. Let her rip, baby.
All right. Well, I also behind the scenes. So the wheel, every time I go to the website for the wheel here, it just automatically has the setting saved for me. This time it did not. So I had to like re-put everything into the wheel. It's a little bluer than it's normally. I feel like it's usually some more dark shades of purple. Not important, but I spun the wheel just to make sure that everything was how I wanted it to be. The name that came up with this group, don't worry, I put the name back in, was Will Kirby.
Oh. Of all
Matt B.
wow.
Reagan. You hear what he just admitted it. He said he set everything up the way that he wanted it to be. That was a complete admission.
Peridiam, you study a lot of tape. Did Amon hear a word I said?
No, he didn't.
No, like
he's
not
been
one
looking
word.
at his phone or something right now. So.
Literally, like there's like a whole shout out to the Patreon group chat. Somebody had put a whole thing in there explaining how it's not possible to rig the wheel, and knowing that Amon is joking when he makes this, but like a whole step-by-step explaining what it would look like if it was rigged. And shout out to them.
I did not know somebody did that. I need to go.
Yes. So with that said, let's spin the wheel and find our first player of the episode. It could be Dr. Will. His name is back.
Have you guys put in Boogie? Has he been picked yet?
He's not been picked yet.
No.
Is that who you're manifesting? Mike Boogie?
No, I mean,
first up for the day, looks like BB16, Christine Brett.
Christine. Oh boy. Boo. No, I'm kidding.
Don't you get started. Oh my gosh.
They crushed her.
They took out the booze from Big Brother US, but they're still living on here.
Some of those boos were. There was one person in the audience. I wish we could play the clip. Maybe add it in post edit, Matt. There was like one person in the back. It was like boo. Like it was like they were like determined to be the biggest booer in the audience.
And they probably made it through, or no, they definitely made it through. If you know about it, there.
Should they bring the booze back, or is that too hard? Are you guys happy that they got rid of the live audience cheering, or like mostly not cheering or jeering?
Maybe this is a little toxic of me. Maybe I don't need for people to be completely lambasted and dragged, and like we've seen people can be very, very nasty on Twitter. I don't need people to be doing that to people in real life. But a little booing, it's like, come on, like you're on TV, like not everyone is going to like you, especially if you're doing unsavory things. Like somebody booing you should be probably like the last of your worries, you know what I mean? So like I say bring the booze back. As long as they're not going overboard, as long as when they're told to be quiet, they be quiet, then I don't care. That's how I'm about it.
I'll take a little bit of position in the other way just to be a softie here, because this person is then going into the jury house with no cell phone, no way to find out any other information for a while. And they just have to live with that outside information that they shouldn't otherwise have. And I would never want to live with that myself. So I think
it's like case by case, because there are some people who's like, well, honey, what did you expect? And then there are others where it's like there is a bit more nuance to the situation. And I feel like Christine probably might. Yes, Christine does kind of fall into that. So like I can agree with that.
All right. Anyway. Well, let's talk Christine. Amon, do we have our notes up to talk about what the BB Wiki reminds us about Christine's game?
Yes, we do. Christine began the game working with Nicole and Hayden. Later, Christine was pulled into the dominant alliance, the Detonators. Christine's inclusion in both alliances led to her being positioned safely for the majority of the game. Christine's game began to crumble when the Detonators grew suspicious of Christine playing both sides. Despite trying to show her loyalty by backdooring Nicole, Christine was still left on the bottom of the Detonators. After Derek won HOH on day 77, Derek nominated Christine alongside Victoria with a plan to target Frankie. After Frankie won the POV, Christine was evicted by a vote of 3-0, placing 6th.
Now, I absolutely love when we have a true expert on the call with us today. So if there's any world where I was going to forget anything, I don't feel like Peridiam is going to forget anything. So Peridiam, I would like to start with you on what you remember of Christine's gameplay in Big Brother 16.
I heard her gameplay was it was both contained within the majority alliance. That was her loyalty, but it also sort of her Big Brother 16. A lot of times people think of it as this like very steamroll season, and Christine's definitely a part of that. She helps propagate like the detonators and the bomb squad kind of to win every single week. She contributes to it, but a lot of what gets lost is that like there was a lot of fractures happening in the middle of the season that created a fair bit of ruckus, fair bit of calamity going on. And Christine and Frankie sort of broke off at one point a little bit. This was more Frankie than Christine, which is why we see that infamous Frankie Caleb dynamic happen at the Battle of the Block comp where Frankie solos it. But Christine is a part of that in that she is fractioned off from the detonators, and it puts her in a weird spot where she's not fully in with them, which puts her at the bottom. But then she's also not with the bros because she thinks she's with the bros, but the bros are really like, and they're such compies that they ultimately can just muscle her out at the bottom when it comes down to it. I'm honestly not super over the moon about her as a player and what she did. She basically is another one of those bottom dwellers of the majority alliance who just supports it and then ultimately gets picked off exactly where she was going to get picked off. Wouldn't emulate her gameplay too much, but she's okay, I guess. Honestly, I don't have a lot of crazy hard-hitting opinions on Christine other than just that. Like, she was there. She worked with Frankie. She kind of moved away from the detonators, came back to the detonators, got pulled back in just as Frankie got pulled back in. She turned on Nicole. That was a whole thing where they had like a potential women's alliance at the beginning. Nicole and her were tight. And then Derek basically manipulates that into them going after each other. And what happens? Christine takes out Nicole and they both win HOH at the same time. And you're like, are they going to do something with this? And it turns out, yeah, they did. Nicole got evicted on the same week that she won HOH. So bye, Christine.
And Nicole learned her damn lesson, as Devon would say.
This is Nicole's origin story, everyone.
I keep and I know that it's eye rolling. I know this is not about Nicole, but every time y'all complain about Nicole turning on the girls, I'm like, y'all forget what happened to her in her first that she is very, very determined to make sure that does not happen to her again, and she did it. But anyway, this is about Christine. Yeah, I echo Peridiam. I mean, I feel like from the jump, like she sort of got invited through no real strong doing of her own. She was invited into the majority alliance. I mean, she says so. Like I remember specifically verbatim her saying in the diary room in one of the early episodes, like, here I am, 2 of these alliances have fallen into my lap and I haven't had to do anything to get them. And I feel like that's her game. And it kind of just stays that way the entire time. Now, there is some politicking here and there where, you know, I do feel like she does a good job of sort of making sure that in the beginning she is above the fray. And I do think that there is like a bit of a cutthroat nature to her that you do need to survive in Big Brother. It's just that I don't think that she did enough digging to realize that, like, you were invited in. There were these people that were already talking beforehand. I feel like she never did enough to break that structure apart. She was just happy to break the ones that were under her apart. I'm like, well, this is a pyramid scheme now, baby. Like, but you're not at the top. Like, you're like right in the middle. Eventually you're going to get clicked off. And I don't understand why she didn't see it all the way up until her eviction. She was so butthurt and didn't say anything to anybody as if she was surprised. I'm like, Christine, what did you think was going to happen? Like, you did it to her. Why? You get it. You get them how you lose them, or you lose them how you get them. Like, this is how it goes. So, funnily enough, we were just talking about the booing situation. I was scrolling through a little bit of Reddit to see what some people had to say about her game, and I found this post by someone. They were talking about the boos in the audience, and somebody said, I was a part of the audience for that eviction. They polled the audience before the eviction asking who people wanted out. Someone had asked, how do you respond if it's someone we don't care for? Their answer was, react however you feel. Just try to sustain the reaction for a long time. I booed because I didn't care for her at the time, but seeing her face and when they cut to commercial, her eyes tearing up did make me feel sad. The next time I was in the audience, they strictly said, so whether you like the house guest or not, please just cheer as loud as you can. If you don't care for them, just cheer for the show. So
I think with her eviction, it's sort of, in a way, it pulls the show changes from being a lot more ruthless, because I think she's the last recipient of the audience really getting into it on that
yeah,
level. The producers wrangle them in, I think, starting with the next season. I don't know if that ever happened much. I don't remember if anyone got that kind of reaction on Big Brother 17 when they walked out. I don't think anyone did. Maybe nobody deserved it to some extent, but quote unquote deserved. But I think that's Christine's eviction marks for me like a little bit of the change in the mentality of how the producers handle the live show. Watching her, and it's like, this is not. There are very few people in the history of Big Brother that I think truly deserve that, because it is up removed from the game at some point, unless you want to factor in the live audience's reaction. It does sort of give the players in the house a little bit of information as a player like Christine walks out, and you can hear that reaction. I always remember them on the feeds being like, or even on the live episode for those 30 seconds where they're just like Cody's just like, oh my God. Can you believe that they just destroyed her?
And then
him not knowing that it has something to do with him.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, no, he knew because Frankie was like the main one being like, that's so fine. Like, she's the one that's married, not you. You didn't have sex with her. Did you? He's like, no.
I mean, yeah, and like all this obviously goes back to the booing all goes back to her friendship, relationship, whatever you call it, with Cody, which obviously after the season is over, they're going to both very adamantly. I mean, look, we saw whatever we saw, the cuddling, the caressing of the hands, the arms, but they're going to deny that there's any kind of anything between them, but a very close friendship. Christine had been in a relationship in the real time, so she was
married.
She was married at the time. Important detail. And when she gets back into real life, aside from the game, it's just like a lot, like the fan reaction to like Derek and Cody being at the end, Derek's win. It's like, okay, expected reaction, like this masterful gameplay, like we're all reacting to that, but also like, where is the passion behind the Big Brother fan base that is always there from day one till now? A lot of it was behind telling Christine how much they thought that she was doing something wrong on the show, tweeting at her husband, and letting their voices be heard in that way. I don't know how she rebounded in such a way to be an active presence on Twitter in the years to come. With 16 having been my first season, like watching in real time, and then being on Twitter for it. Just I remember her being around so much, and I'm like, wow, she is just like avoiding the trolls or blocking them or whatever it is, because like there were so many.
I think public perception as time went on, when people become a little bit more socially attuned to biases and sort of like crappy ways of thinking, I think there was sort of like a push of this misogynistic narrative, which I agree with. Like, she got so much hate and Cody got to walk out like nothing happened. It's like both parties knew what was going on. Like, now, yes, sure, you can say that there is more of an onus of the person in the relationship to maybe be a little bit more mindful of their actions, but that doesn't completely absolve Cody of also engaging in whatever's going on. Now, at the same time, I think people understood that a little bit more, and so we're willing to give her more grace. And I also think that people have to understand that not every relationship is, uniform, and that Christine said multiple times that her and her husband had sort of like come to an agreement that she is allowed to do a little flirtation if it's going to help progress her game, which it did.
Oh, 100%.
So, it is what it is. And of course, at the same time, even though I think that Cody should have gotten a little bit of the flack as well, I also think like, well, he's also in a game too. So there is like a level of like, I have to play the game as well as like maintain the respect. And I do think that, yes, there were sometimes like when he's like laying in her lap and she's like caressing his hair or whatever. Yeah, they were getting a little hot and heavy sometimes, but I feel like for the most part, they maintained, like they never crossed a line, at least to my memory.
I also am like,
is this blown out of proportion?
They did go to Christine's husband. I remember they had like a home piece segment.
They did.
Which obviously is just purely stoking the flames. And I don't remember. I think he wasn't super happy with it, if I recall.
He wasn't.
Which definitely contributed greatly to because it was like, well, maybe it's fine, but then he's obviously on the show in front of all of the people watching, and it's like he's expressing his frustration, and then you're just like, because Cody, I don't know if Cody had that per se, so I see the difference, but it's also, I think it might be one of the last seasons where they started going back to the home. I don't remember they've done that at all lately.
They haven't done it a whole lot recently.
I wonder when the last time they did it was, because I'm like, I can't remember if they did it much after that. But still, yeah, I agree. I agree with you, Amon. I think that this was my biggest qualm with like the fan base's reaction to this stuff, and why I'm ultimately like, I don't need the fans reacting to anyone walking out the front doors or just in general, is that if I've never really understood or jived with the idea of like commentating on people's relationships, whether it is for good or worse. Like I don't know it well enough because I can't imagine other people commenting on my relationship, and there's just so much time and dynamics that come into relationship between two people, and a third party on the outside, especially somebody that doesn't know it at all and is just getting a very weird filter of it on a game on top of that. Like to criticize, I've never really wanted to do that. I do my best to be conscious of like reserving judgment when it comes to personal stuff. I can judge their game, but when it comes to being personal, especially with like relationships back home that like the husband or whoever isn't even in the show, obviously he can say what he wants. He's a part of that. But my reaction is just kind of like, hey, I get it. It's frustrating. It is what it is. But I'm not going to be up like emotionally invested enough to feel any type of way. It just feels like there's just too much. There's too much that I know I don't know. And I can't, I don't want to be the arbiter of like what is considered appropriate behavior between two individuals. They're adults. They get to do it themselves. Cody's an adult. I've always had that feeling. So I just can't get on board with it. Which is why I'm ultimately like, I don't think the audience needs to be booing anybody. And I definitely felt bad for Christine. I still do when I rewatch that moment. I try not to watch it too often, but I've included it when I looked at Big Brother 16, and I'm like, damn, yeah, that's pretty brutal.
I wonder if that person that left that comment on Reddit is the one that I'm referring to, because there is one person that is like, boo!
Oh, they went out loud.
Horrible.
I feel like Christine and like Allison Irwin needed like a support group of people that like have this kind of flirtation going on in the show. They check back with the partner back home. That would have been the case, I guess, for Austin in 17 if they were still doing those segments. I don't know if they. I don't know
if they went to his girlfriend, but I definitely remember that being another narrative that came up of like
they love
the
storyline. Yeah,
they love the whole like they're in the house doing something scandalous with like another person, but they're in a relationship outside the house. Right. That's like a very common trope. Yeah,
across many seasons. But yeah, I mean, look, so as a player, Christine here, obviously, the big move, as has been discussed so far, of making sure that Nicole gets taken out of the game just to be in this world where she's on the bottom. It's interesting to one thing I was thinking while you guys were talking, this isn't the matchup, but imagine it was. I want to ask both of you, who are you taking? Christine, if this was the matchup, Christine versus Christmas.
And we're including like Christmas as both outings. Is that what we're doing? It's not just like one season. It's like Christmas overall.
Yeah, I mean, if she got pulled right now, who would you send?
And you like, let's say you put like, who's the better player between Christine and Christmas?
I'm just drawing a couple of comparisons in my line. In my mind, I said line. In my mind,
do we want more Christ or in Christ?
I think I would have to go with Christmas.
So like, because I think Christmas is gonna win more comps.
The way that I got here was thinking like, I wonder like how, you can't imagine BB16 without Derek, obviously, but just imagine Derek wasn't there and it was Christine having this relationship or friendship with Cody in the way that she thought she did. And maybe Cody's priorities are different at that point, and maybe Christine isn't the one to go in a spot like this. And then I'm like, again, it wasn't the same thing. Christmas was on with Memphis in that season, but just like a similar somewhat of an end game. So Amon would take Christmas.
I don't know. I think a part of me wants to take Christine just because I feel like she is a little more flexible, but I also feel like she's not nearly as much of a comp beast. So I personally don't like. I personally prefer Christine over Christmas.
I think I might go Christine too, but
I feel like I would lean Christine if I had to make a quick judgment call. But that's a kind of a close matchup.
I'd be open to the
Christmas, but it makes me feel better that both of you said Christine, if that makes any sense at all.
Well, there's a chance that we pull Christmas Abbott here, and we have this matchup right now. I mean, and if it does, then I'm just hanging up because Amon will torture me.
Matt Rigori.
Let's find out who we're going to be matching up Christine with. Christine from Big Brother 16 versus Michelle Noonan.
That's what I mean.
Michelle Noonan.
Holy smoke. All right.
Interesting.
Now, Peridiam, can you tell me, have either of these two individuals come up in a video anytime recently?
Honestly, I don't think I've ever included her in a top 5. Christine either. Honestly, no? I don't think I've included them in a top or bottom of anything. So this is what I mean, where I'm like, what do I have to say? I've never really sat down and written out paragraphs about either Michelle or Christine. Other than
Today's
like
the day.
Other than I did include them a little bit. Michelle was barely included in my recap of Jordan's game on Big Brother 11 because she's just like, she has this really wild rivalry. It's really a one-sided more so with Ronnie. And when I realized, I didn't remember this, but I looked into it, I was like, Ronnie hated her. He hated her.
He did.
When you rewatch his eviction episode, when he walks out the door, he is just livid about her. He hates her so much, and he tries to throw her under the bus. And it was just because like he thought that she was like flipping on him at one point or something, which is weird, coming very rich coming from the man throwing stone in glass house and whatnot. It's like but it was just so he referred to her as the devil, and that was like what really stood out for me at the beginning. She was always kind of in the middle. She was never too offensive that anyone really wanted to take a shot at her, especially on Big Brother 11, where that cast was so volatile and over the top. Everybody was just like up to 11 with their
Very
emotions.
much so. And then you have Michelle here, who like people eventually going to start yelling at her, and she's not made for that. She's not a little
more of a punching bag. Yeah, she's kind of more of a punching bag on the season.
But she tries
even
to punch
Ronnie
back
is taking punches.
Yeah,
she does. She definitely does like occasionally fight back. She's not somebody who just takes it for sure. And she does really well. She goes all the way to the final four. She could have been a front runner, but she was up against, I guess, a slightly more formidable duo with Kevin and Natalie, who recognized that she was considered a bigger threat than somebody like Jordan. Jordan was never really considered to be a threat at all, maybe a slightly social threat, but nothing going on there. Whereas Michelle was somewhat likable, but also could win comps, had more of the mental game. Like you can see, she won an HOH, she won 3 vetoes. That's more than Jordan, who I think only won like 1 HOH or something. So they eventually said, you know what, we got to get her out. But she kind of just fall into a similar category for me as Jordan, where it's like you could put her on a season, and I think that she would probably be doing okay. At least I don't know her very well today. I've seen some random updates from like the last 5 or 7 years. But it's like, maybe she's different today. But for the Michelle that I watched from Big Brother 11, I'm like, yeah, you could throw on another season. I think she'd probably be fine.
I was looking at some stuff, and I have learned some things that I'm not going to reveal on the podcast, and y'all can take that for what
I know what you're talking about.
Do your own research, but
what do we have as far as the wiki though for
Michelle was a member of the Brains clique and was the respective Brains representative at the Final Four. Michelle was the 9th player evicted by the sole vote of Kevin placing 4th. Michelle had the misfortune of being disliked and overviewed as a player. Because of this, she got into many arguments with the house guest and was deemed the season's villain, even though she wasn't seen that way to viewers. And that's it.
She's kind of like almost like Nicole Anthony in a way, not super, like the idea that she's the villain to the people in that game, but she's really not the villain, and she's not this big strategic threat that they were claiming her to be. That at least that's my takeaway. I also want to say that like I didn't watch the feeds. This is the last season before I hopped on the show. So this is like my last season where I have like don't have as strong as an understanding of the inner dynamics as I do going with season 12 onward. So for me, Michelle's kind of in this weird, like, I don't know, she's there, she goes far, she doesn't win, she doesn't have a huge impact on a lot of the game.
Yeah.
I don't know who she does beat in that Final Four. Truly, I mean, I understand that she's viewed as this bigger threat because she's, exactly what Peridiam just said about the Michelle versus Jordan situation. But like sitting next to Kevin loses, Jordan loses.
Natalie. I think Natalie is so hated that
I think she beats Natalie. Yeah.
How many did Natalie get? What did she get like 2-3 votes or something?
She got 2.
I think she beats
Natalie.
Like
she loses to Kevin. She definitely loses to Jordan, obviously.
I think at that point she's the lesser of 2 evils between her and Michelle.
I just feel like she was so not.
The problem with Natalie is that she had like anti-votes against her, not just like pro-Jordan votes. And I think that goes against her no matter who she's next to.
Yeah.
I think like Jesse and Lydia would not want, like Lydia really didn't want to vote for Natalie. And I think that also affected Jesse, which is why they both voted for Jordan. So I think you're going to see the same thing happen with Michelle versus Natalie if that were to happen. If Jordan got evicted. I think Michelle likely wins if Jordan gets evicted at the Final Four. Well, unless she doesn't win the HOH, but even then, I want to say Kevin. I didn't know this for a long time. Kevin was going to take Jordan to the Final 2.
He was.
He was. I didn't realize this, and I went on and looked at the archives for the footage. I was like, I wonder if that would have happened for Michelle. He viewed Natalie as a big threat, which I was like, whoa, not the best read there. But I don't know. Like Michelle maybe could have won this season if she didn't get evicted there. But
is Michelle like Nicole Anthony if Nicole fought back?
maybe a little bit.
Maybe. I mean, don't forget. I mean, Nicole did fight back sometimes.
I meant like argue. Well, actually, no, you're right. I was gonna say I meant like argumentatively.
Like, Nicole would get into it. Like if you pushed her, Nicole would eventually.
But she would do a lot of it like to the camera or to herself. There would be like 1 or 2 times that she did like confront like I don't know like Nick Macarone or something.
Nick, yeah, that.
I remember like everybody wanted her so bad to like confront people in BB21, and then the same thing would happen with BB22. Everyone was like, "Yeah, go fight Janelle." I was like, "Y'all want her to fight Janelle?" I'm like, "Great."
When she was already wrong about that. But anyway, I don't know. If you guys haven't noticed, my thing that I tend to do is look for the closest comparison that I can find when we pull somebody. But I don't know. What else do we have on Michelle? What else were you?
I think that she was I think she was a relatively decent player. I mean, especially with a house as combative as BB11, like getting to the end is no easy feat. And I think, especially she's sort of like always playing a defensive game, and she won quite a few comps. Like, look, 1 HOH, 3 vetoes. Like, she definitely had some power that she used to wield in the house, and sometimes it was not always in her best interest, and sometimes she was being used because I feel like she never really had like a true home because she was always getting into it with somebody. Like, it was Ronnie, it was Lydia. Like, there was always something going on with her. So I do think that she got pushed around a lot, but I do think that when she found like power to float to, she would do it, and she would keep herself relatively safe throughout. So it's not like, now that I'm really thinking about it, it's like she didn't play a bad game. I just think that her relationships with everyone were always so tenuous and so weak based, which is the definition of a floater. So I mean,
she is. There's a handful of floaters on this season that just kind of like are free floating, and they sort of come together towards the end or the middle of the season. I think like her side of the house, she was with the Jeff Jordan side at the beginning, and that side got blown up and just started to get picked off, and she was just one of the least threatening of that side of the house, which is what happens with Jordan as well. She sort of is in the similar position, same trajectory as Jordan, where there are bigger, louder players. This season is full of very loud people, and Michelle is one of the less loud people. I mean, she still can get loud sometimes, but she was one of the by far less loud. Even Jordan got loud too. Like everyone that season was getting loud at times. And you know, they took out Brayden, Laura, Casey. These were all players that were slightly on Michelle's side at the beginning in the first 3 to 4 weeks. They were gonna gun for Russell. He eventually flopped over, and eventually they just sort of come together. And Michelle's a part of that. I don't know what you call them, the ragtag group of misfits. They just sort of like, and they just start winning the comps at the right time. And obviously the coup d'etat helped her. Didn't hurt her, and yeah, she's okay. She's like, there's a lot of big brother players are really bad, like actively hurt their game repeatedly. And I wouldn't think Michelle, from my recollection, is one of those players. I feel like she's somebody who's always just kind of, she's gonna do okay. It's kind of like a little bit like Christine, like the person that we're comparing it. Like Christine is also somebody who's like, okay, I do think she probably made more mistakes when I look at her overall game, Christine, but maybe I trust Christine's just aptitude to play the game better. I don't know. This one's
kind of
because Christine, like, you know, for all of what she did to get Nicole out, it was because she felt like she couldn't trust Nicole, and obviously was also slightly being manipulated by very powerful, strong players in the game. But with that aside, I'm like, I wonder if she would have had it in her to,
like, Big Brother 11 doesn't have a mastermind strong player that's like,
no.
Whereas I'm like, if you put Michelle on 16, is it like the same but even less than Christine, you know, like, or vice versa? If Christine gets swapped onto 11 somehow, do we see a similar trajectory? I could see it. I don't know though. And that's what I'm like weighing, is like, if I were to compare these two players, they're not too different in a way.
They're really not too different. I mean,
it's like
Michelle is a little bit more better at comps though.
Michelle has this ability, as I'm like reminding myself, just looking at the chart, to, you know, save herself when her butt's on the line.
Right.
She comes off the block twice by her own POV wins. She's not on the block to have people vote to evict her. She doesn't get a vote until the week she's evicted, when she's left on the block against Jordan there, as we were talking about. But otherwise, she's not eligible to get voted for at all until then. And then another one of the vetoes that she wins in week 4 is just doesn't get used. But like, We're going to talk about a lot of comp beasts throughout these seasons and probably give them some credit for being able to win when it's necessary. And she's got that going for her.
For sure. I mean, it's her HOH that's the one after Jeff uses the coup d'etat. And that was where the season was up in the air. Chima was even allowed to play at HOH. That was like her winning that absolutely set in stone, her side of the house, like basically controlling the second half of the season. Even though I don't know how much credit I'll give to Michelle, is just like that is clutch. There is something I've been reminding myself, like being able to win a comp at the right time is very clutch in Big Brother, because it can you can get out the right person and set yourself up. And even just getting out the right person, whether you do it super well or intentionally, is still really, really important. People undervalue like the right HOH. Like even when we're talking about Big Brother 26, looking at like the right person, getting the right person out at the right time. I think like say Chelsea getting out Quinn or whoever at that pivotal moment, timing, it really sets you up. You get out that one player. She ended up getting that was the week that Chima quit. Michelle was HOH, and that was big. She was one of the biggest voices against Michelle's side of the house, and there's something to it. A part of me wants to lean Michelle in this matchup, just because like
I think I have my answer now.
You think Michelle? You think you'd take Michelle over Christine? I feel like Christine could be more steady Eddie though. Like put her on a regular season or any season, and maybe she just I don't know.
See, that's what I was because there is like because Michelle is some of those arguments and like some of the upheavals in her game were a little self-inflicted, because I remember like some of these arguments that she would get into was because she would get caught in so many lies. Like she would say one thing to one person and then say another thing to the next. And then that would be the reason why she was like enemy numero uno, like 90% of the time. But at the same time, she is able to win the comps when she needs to. And there are also still bigger targets. But I'm thinking like if you take Michelle and put her in BB16, where it's not even as half as combative as BB11, I'm like, does she fall? Does she just end up playing basically what Christine's game is?
I mean, you get Michelle probably in the cast she's going to do the best in.
11. Yeah.
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 Like you put her against a tougher field.
And she almost won.
It's going to go better.
Is she as easily? Do you think Michelle is as easily manipulated by somebody like Derek?
She's not, but there's like you guys are making so many good points back and forth, but like that's one that's not in her favor. That like she doesn't get manipulated, but I think with, like you were saying, she is a little bit so wishy-washy in her conversations and not super focused on keeping track of the things that she's saying to different people, which gets her caught up in those moments. And then when she gets confronted, she's not like, she doesn't have like the strong nature to then defend the things that she said or like lie about something straight up and say, no, I did, in a believable way where people were convinced or people weren't still mad at her after all of that. So this really is tough.
Also, if I pick Michelle, does this mean that I'm saying Michelle's better than Christmas? Christine's better than Christmas? And I'm like, wait, does that make sense? Would I say Christine or Michelle's better than Christmas too?
The beauty of the bracket.
Anyway, okay. I think I know who I'm going to pick between the two.
If you know who you're picking, go ahead, because I still feel torn. I was leaning Michelle and then almost feel like Amon's pulling me back the other way, but I don't even know if he's pulling himself back the other way.
The same logic I used to basically parse through Christmas and Christine is the same logic I'm going to use for this one, where I feel like Christine competed on a very there's a lot of good players on her season, as we've seen, that they've stood the test of time. I think Derek, Cody, Nicole, and Frankie are all fairly decent. I would say there are also a lot of whatever players, but when I look at that, and I feel like I took Christine. I'm gonna be picking Christine here because I think I trust her overall ability to get in better. And she played, I think there's that argument of like her competition was a lot higher on Big Brother 16, I think, than on Big Brother 11. I think Big Brother 11 is one of the less skillful casts overall. And while I do think Christine had less of a chance to win her season than Michelle, I think Michelle stood a higher chance to win. I think on any given day, I do remember that you unlock that memory of Michelle getting caught in a lot of lies and not being able to get her out of it. And that's what sort of soured her reputation. And I'm like, she is clutch, more clutch than Christine. Christine did get manipulated harder, and maybe that factors in more, but you're playing against some really good players that I think were able to be so likable and know her so well. I mean, maybe that happens again, but then again, I don't know. Like Michelle, I don't know. This is the most random thing ever. So I'm just gonna pick Christine because whatever. It's almost a coin flip.
I'm really torn still.
You can take Michelle. I'd be like, I get it.
I think I'm gonna go Michelle.
Oh, good. Don't make me do this.
I think I want to go Michelle only because I feel like there's a bit more like tenacity there with her game that I tend to sort of like value more in a player. I do think that she's a lot messier and less self-contained than Christine is, but that's not always necessarily a bad thing. Maybe if you like more modern Big Brother where people are a little bit less risk averse, or more risk averse rather, maybe I could see. I think they're both. I think you really can't go wrong with either question, with either answer. But I think for me, I'm gonna go Christine or
There's more dog in the fight with Michelle, I think.
Yeah,
there's more going on there.
Yeah, that's she just excites me a bit more than Christine does.
Sure, I can see it.
Wow, great. This.
Well,
I genuinely have gone back and forth like there's a ping pong match going on in my head since we finished talking about Michelle as a whole.
What you gonna do?
I don't know. I'm totally down with everything Peridiam is saying about Christine. And, I've many times so far considered the field in which a player is playing. Peridiam hasn't seen this episode yet. Wait, yes, he has. The America matchup was in Kirsten's episode that is up. And, she's somebody who I was giving a lot of, credit to for playing with an awful cast and, somebody who could have had more potential. This is a case where Christine is a average-ish player that played with a superior cast of like not just Derek. I mean, Cody very good, Frankie very good, Caleb following along with very good players, Victoria, so again following along with very good players. So at a certain point when you have all of these strong players, they have to start making cuts somewhere, and Christine, I can't remember exactly where she saw her path going forward once Nicole was gone, but she knew that it wasn't a path where she could trust Nicole going forward. So while we look at that and say, well, what are you doing? Picking Derek Levasseur and sticking with that side. But she did not think that Derek was going to put her up if he won next week, where Nicole would have, because they had not been able to trust each other to that point. And that's where she was at. And Michelle is just she could have won that season, but that's against Natalie, if that, and not many other players. I feel like towards that end game. I mean, she probably beats Russell because Russell's not the most liked if somehow the two of them end up together at the end. But I feel like it requires such specific circumstances where Christine, I think it's so hard to picture her there, but I feel like if she does, I see her having so much more equity to be the winner than I do Michelle in most scenarios. And with such an even matchup here, I think I have to go Christine.
Wow. I was like, how hard is it to convince Michelle or Natalie and Kevin to keep you at the final four? Is it really that hard? I don't know. I get it. I mean, she probably fought. I don't know, but fair play.
Yeah.
I don't feel confident about the decision. I just had to.
No, I don't either. I'm not 100% confident either. I'm like, this is what I mean.
I think we're gonna get a lot of comments on this one. I can tell.
It's just like
I'd be curious to know what other people think, because these are things where I'm like, I don't have an audience reaction on either of these two people as far as their ability to play Big Brother very well. I don't know. I don't know how to read it.
It's a toss-up. I mean, I will lock in Christine and we'll make it this 2-1 official vote, evicting Michelle from the bracket. There's always a chance for Michelle to come back in via the battle back vote we have going on Patreon. But we have to move on because we were like, oh yeah, it's always 90 minutes, and now we're an hour.
Do you go over 90? Do you go over 90? Is that
we've gotten to 1 hour 40, I think, maybe with Michael.
Oh boy, I apologize. I say too much.
Let's get to the wheel, if I can find it here, and let's get the next player going.
Yeah, let's go for it,
because that was fun. Wild.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was a really good matchup.
People already typing away. Michelle should have won. Up next, do we have? Oh,
is it?
so
What is
close.
it?
Oh, it is Lisa Donahue.
Boom. Let's go.
Back to our winners, baby.
wow.
The next name on the list was Clay Honeycutt right after Lisa, and I really thought it was going to go that extra tick. I was like, all right, we'll talk about Clay. I can always talk about Clay.
How many winners have you guys ticked off? Do you know?
I
Like,
want to
tick up
say
the
it
list.
This
was
is what, number
9.
7 now? Oh,
No, I think it was
really?
9.
That's pretty
damn.
good. That's pretty impressive. There's only like 25 or something.
I'm saying.
Well, I
Back
guess
to the
with
winners
Canada,
here.
Yeah,
Lisa
I mean,
Donahue.
Peridiam has just now released a video a few weeks ago about Lisa.
Let's
The first
go.
3 winners of Big Brother as we know it today. All right, Lisa, originally aligned with Cara, Roddy, and her showmance Eric. Lisa found herself on the block next to Eric in week 4. Although Eric was evicted, she discovered that Cara and Roddy had turned on her, causing Lisa to shift loyalties, building a strong relationship with Danielle. When Eric was given a chance to return, Lisa voted against it so she could play the game without distraction and avoid a target. Lisa made it to the final 3 with her allies Danielle and Jason. She won the final HOH comp, choosing to evict Jason and taking Danielle to the final 2. Her social game and likability helped her become the first female winner in the show's history. She lasted 82 days in the house and received 9 of the 10 votes from the jury. Lisa was later one of the 20 candidates eligible to be voted back into BB7. However, she was not selected.
Robbed.
Let me jump in front of Peridiam here, because somebody who, recently just recapped all of Lisa's winning game will be able to fill in all the gaps. Because what I'm going to do is just stand to get us started here. Lisa, one of my favorite winners, watching her not get the chance to compete again in Big Brother 7, truly crushing. And this is somebody who wasn't watching in real time. I can only imagine how I would have felt that night watching that premiere and seeing Lisa not go back in the house. Would have been crushed. So somebody was doing me a favor by not putting me in the Big Brother universe until much later. But just watching her throughout the edited episodes of Big Brother 3, I can't be anything but impressed with her all throughout the season. I mean, the one, kickoff moment where you really see that this person is here to play and thrive is, of course, that moment where she doesn't vote for Eric to come back in, when by all accounts, you would think that somebody would vote for their, not just showmans, but like closer ally to come back in the game. But she recognized, this is not something that I should do. I'm going to get distracted. I have a good path ahead of me alongside Danielle, Jason. There's people that, like me in the house. There's people that are much bigger targets. And why would I put that target back on me? Like Cara and Roddy are still in the house right at that point. So they have a target on their back. Why would I want that for myself when I could just go forward with a path that I see for myself? And then just from there on, just navigating through the, breakup, I guess you could call it, the friendship breakup, the alliance breakup of her and Cara, where Kiara's going to go out, Roddy's going to go out, and she just nestles herself in such a good spot alongside Danielle and Jason as far into the game as she could possibly go, to the point where she is the damn winner. Again, nothing but standing here, but I will turn to you, Peridiam. You just, again, recently recapped her entire game from start to finish.
Yeah, no, Lisa's great. I've said she's underrated. I do think that she's overall underrated. I think in the pantheon of Big Brother winners, she's probably not in the top half, but that might just be me underrating her. I didn't get to watch this season live, so I don't have the live feeds to work with. But from everything I've read, there's a great documentary out there with Taryn Armstrong and I think Rob Cesternino. They go into a lot of the depth of her game and the overall narrative of the season. Lisa is fantastic. She is one of those. She has 2 vastly different games from start to finish, which is great because she wins the first HOH and she wins the last HOH. It really caps off in a beautiful narrative for her that I think oftentimes falls into the background of the Danielle Reyes of it all, which Danielle's incredible. Like, don't get me wrong. I love Danielle. I made 2 whole videos. I skipped over Lisa back in the day and just talked about Danielle for 2 videos straight with Lisa there in the backdrop. Like, oh, by the way, Lisa beat her. It was crazy. But I was like, how did this happen? This is the first major controversial winner where it's not even about Lisa, really. Like, what Lisa does is very stock standard winning Big Brother. Be likable, be decent at competitions, just have a great social game, to where she was able to be in the majority alliance at the beginning of the season. The alliance gets blown up after a few weeks by players like Danielle, and then she pivots, doesn't vote her number 1 ally, her showmance, back into the game with the first ever returning player twist. And she goes forward, getting even higher than, say, Marcellus and Amy in the pecking order, being number 3 with Danielle and Jason, the 2 strongest players of the season. And she manages to get them to make a disastrous game-ending move for them, where they were by far and away the most skilled players in the season, and 2 of the best players to ever play Big Brother and never win the show because of Lisa. And I don't think she is like tactically all that great. I think she's decent. She is oftentimes more the apprentice than the master. She is in the shadow of, say, Danielle. She considers herself the princess of darkness, whereas Danielle is the queen. And that fits. It checks out. And I think that the social game was a lot different in Big Brother 3 because the jury wasn't isolated. So you had to keep in mind that like they were going to go home and watch you. And that did dramatically affect Lisa's ability to win. I think if you have even with a sequestered jury, I do think Lisa probably still wins, which may be a hot take. But I don't know. I really like Lisa. I've always been pretty high on her. I would be hard pressed to see who she's going to possibly lose to out of all of the players who are about to pull from in the wheel. I do think she's probably going to beat them, but I'll be curious. I've always liked to talk about Lisa. I think her win is just, there's a lot to talk about with this.
And I'm hopeful and also expecting that we will continue to talk about Lisa in a future round, but you never know who's coming up.
You never know. I mean,
yeah. That's the scary part. But I'm on Lisa thoughts here.
Yeah, and I mean, you guys kind of really said it all. I mean, I think like, well, there's always going to be the narrative that Danielle Reyes should have won this season, and I think I'd probably still tend to agree to this day. I think that the flip side to that is Lisa beat her. You know what I mean? And people back then were still sort of saying that like Danielle should have won. And I think there is still something to be said about beating that person with a game that maybe isn't as like meticulous as Danielle's, but not a bad game by any stretch of the imagination. Definitely one of the strongest social players in the house, if not the strongest social player. And so I think that really just goes to show just how well she was at adapting. And, you know, it's kind of like similarly to like the whole Nicole narrative. Like you get tricked by some of your allies in the beginning and then you're like, never again, sis. And that was sort of like her rise to the top from those first couple of weeks. So I think that Lisa is just she's one of those players that I think she has that unique quality that anybody that wants to be good at Big Brother, you should take a page from Lisa's book of adaptability, because I think that that's what she had going for her the most, was that she could sort of just like fit that mold whenever she needed to. So yeah, really, really strong. I don't know who the hell's going to beat her in this matchup.
Yeah, I almost feel like as I take
Danielle.
Down,
we get Danielle. Oh my god!
I feel like in the interest of saving time, we're going to talk about Lisa more in the future. We don't need to,
like the odds of her losing are pretty tough.
Get into every aspect of her game, but we might have to if she ends up in a tough matchup here. So I'm going to spin the wheel and find out. A little scared, a lot of scared.
It's gonna be.
We gotta send somebody home here, and who's it going to be? Lisa is going to be matched up against.
So tiny.
Me neither. I can sometimes make it out.
Janelle.
Janelle.
And this is every season, all 4.
This is all 4 seasons.
Holy moly! Holy moly! Wow, this feels like we should have like the previous 2 both get cut by these 2.
Oh my god.
Oh
no.
You know, this is a chance that Janelle does, Lisa might go here. I don't know. Is that what we're doing?
Where is her thing? Is it in 14? Because that's the last.
She'll be in 6.
She'll be in 6. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because we all need reminders about who Janelle Pierzina is.
Yeah, just in case y'all forgot.
Wow.
All
so
right.
I have reason to be scared, but I don't know. Not to tip my hand. I'm not that scared. Okay, continue.
Janelle, in BB6, she was the best remembered for being a part of the Sovereign 6 alliance and her conflicts with the friendship, mainly Jennifer and Bo. She ultimately finished in 3rd place. Janelle returned to compete on BB7, where she set the record for most individual comps won in a single season with 9 comp wins, 4 HOHs, and 5 POVs. She was also known for her one-sided showmance with Will and infamously evicted her ally Marcellus after Will influenced her to nominate him. Once again, she placed third, evicted by Boogie. On finale night, she became the first house guest to win the AFP award. In BB14, she came back as a coach. In week 4, Mike and Dan convinced HOH Danielle to backdoor her. She was evicted in an 8-1 vote, making her the first coach to get evicted, finishing in 12th place. Janelle later returned in BB22, becoming the first house guest to compete on 4 seasons. Janelle's reputation quickly put her on the outs along with Kaser. The duo was nominated in week 3 by Tyler. Janelle was evicted in a 9-2 vote, finishing in 14th place.
So, Peridiam, one thing that we, I think you were kind of asking this earlier, and it comes up a lot is, what's the criteria? What are we, is it just the best player? And of course, one thing that we've talked about for a lot of players is their legacy, their place within the world of Big Brother. Janelle is Big Brother. There is no denying that. Janelle and her 4 seasons and many more times appearing on the show is somebody that, whatever era you watched Big Brother in, Janelle. If you haven't seen her there, you've seen her on The Traitors, you've seen her on The Amazing Race, you've seen her on literally everywhere.
A traitor, bitch.
She is one of the biggest names, biggest legends in reality television as a whole. But is she a good player at Big Brother, Peridiam?
That's the ultimate question, isn't it?
That's the question.
That's a conversation that's been held since I first got onto the show back in 2010. Michelle was irrelevant. She's been relevant for every year that Big Brother's on the air. There's in some way, shape, or form, people are still comparing her. I do think she is. When I sat down and looked at, like, just because the comps are a huge, like, that's the biggest tipping point in favor of Janelle, is her ability to win competitions, especially in season 6 and 7. Obviously, the last 2 seasons not happening. But she is statistically the either number 1 or number 2 greatest comp beast in the history of Big Brother. And the person that I would say is probably number 1 is Cody, statistically. Not like Jag winning all the comps in one season, but like over the span of more than one season. And also your win percentage and how many players you compete against is a huge deal. And she's competed against 4 different casts, so she's still won comps. I think she's probably number 2 behind Cody, which to me it's a huge thing that I and I think a lot of super fans underrate, because comps she played like a modern game back in like Big Brother 6 and 7, when you just have to win a lot of comps and get to the end. She didn't win she didn't win the one that mattered the most, unfortunately, which was the final 3. She lost both times. She lost that tiebreaker to Yvette. The funny thing is that I think she probably doesn't win that season if she wins that tiebreaker, based on just reading the jury and how the game was playing out. And then on 7, I mean, she would have won against Boogie or Erica, but she didn't win the comp. And that's like the anti-clutch. Like, she's not clutch when she needs to be. She is clutch when she needs to be, but not at the very end when she needs to be that one time. And then we're talking about who's the best player. We talk about, it's not just all about comps, though. There's social, there's strategy. And that to me is worth way more. Because as we're watching on Big Brother 26, you can win every comp under the sun, and what you do with that power will ultimately dictate how well you do in the game. You can get to that final 3 or even the final 2. We won't know for sure, but that doesn't mean you got the stock to win the game. And I think that happens a lot. Like, Janelle almost is like MJ on Big Brother 26 in a way with Big Brother 6. She can win all the comps in the world, but doesn't mean you're going to win with the jury, especially if you're sitting next to somebody who's a little bit better than you.
I say this not having seen the finale. MJ could have swept the jury vote.
That's what I mean. Or I'm like, yeah, we're talking about it like she didn't win. And I'm like, oh my God, MJ, look at that. It's like Janelle 2.0. But like, Janelle to me is not the best strategic player at all. And she's also not the most adaptable player. Like, Big Brother 6 is a very static season. It's not a fluid season. There was very little in the way of the social department. It's like you get like Maggie getting Howie to do a dumb thing socially, and that kind of tips the favor on one side, and then they just sort of go back and forth ping-ponging competitions, and that's Janelle's forte. And then 7, I think, is a really rough outing for I keep saying Michelle, for Janelle. It's a really rough outing for her, because she gets manipulated all season by people who did not have her best interest at heart. And she only survives because she wins the competitions at the right time. Like, Will and Boogie did not want to take her to the final 3 until they realized she's like our Frankenstein's monster. Let's just like use her at like the final 7 onward. But from like the final 12 or so, they were like, we're gonna cut her soon. That was their game plan. And then they decided, because she kept winning the vetoes, we'll just keep her around. Why not? Like, she's not that big of a threat, actually. She's in our pocket. Like, we'll just keep her. Yeah, I'm saying a lot here about Janelle, but ultimately, I mean, if you know me, you probably know where I'm going to go with this one. So, yeah.
Look, I think
I know where Matt's going to.
Janelle, like,
and then 12th, she gets 12th, she gets 14th.
Well, what angle do you want to approach this with them? Are you like thinking about her legend status? Or are you thinking about her strategy?
I'm thinking about her legend status, and I am trying to find the good parts of her game. And I do think that, is she the most strategically forward? Oh my god, this motorcycle! I don't know if y'all can hear that. It's very
no, I don't think I heard it.
Oh, okay.
We got cats and motorcycles. They all want to be on the podcast.
Is she the most strategically forward? A lot of the time, no. And I take your point, Peridiam, in that, like, during her heyday, 6 and 7, where winning comps was sort of like all that you really needed to do to, and even to this day. So, like, if you can win a comp, you're probably going to be able to do well. I think that she clearly is like the queen of that, even if the record gets broken. I think something that makes Janelle just absolutely great, maybe for Big Brother, not necessarily at Big Brother, is just how it's her personality. It's just who she is, just how unflappable she is, like just willing to say, do whatever, but still as a team player, still wants to approach the game with and surround herself with people that are going to be on her side and cheer for those people and root them on too, which is good. Like, I think I don't think that she's like the best social player, because she will get into it with anybody and everybody, but she's sort of like one of those people where she is your best ally and your worst enemy. And I think that depending on the cast that you're in, that can serve you very well. Now, look, BB22, look, I'm gonna just say this. All the women got screwed from the jump. We all remember that first competition and how the men were automatically in a better position to become HOH than the women were. And I keep thinking the comp beat Janelle, if she had actually had a fair shake, that season may have been so different.
Yeah.
So different. So I'm giving a little bit of grace to that, but still, like, it wasn't the best showing for her, and so it's kind of hard. But I don't want BB22 to tarnish her legacy, because BB22 kind of puts a tarnish on everybody's legacy, even Cody's, in my opinion. So like, I just I don't know, the Princess of Darkness versus the Buxom Blonde. I don't know, man.
Look, what happened when Kaser rolled through here? We had to say, "Love ya, bye." And
who did Kaser lose to?
Janelle is not Kaser.
Remember? Who did Kaser
lost
to?
I should remember this off the top of my head, because it was
such
an
wild
important matchup.
Kaser and Janelle. To be fair, they're not the best players.
Kaser lost to Rachel from BB6.
That's fair. That's actually a very fair fight, I think, because Rachel also made it further.
I'm not voting for Lisa. I'm voting for Janelle. I have to.
I get it. I think there's a lot of players in the history of Big Brother that Janelle is far superior to. I think just getting a winner, I think Janelle could even be held higher regard to a handful of winners.
I agree. I mean, if she wins BB7, what are you comparing her to? Like Rachel Riley's win of just like somebody who is like super, not someone who should have won a game based on
when I nitpick Janelle's game, it's not pretty. Like, it just straight up isn't pretty.
No, it's not. It's not.
Especially on 7. 7 is actually, I think, a worse outing than 6, because of how manipulated she gets by everyone. She pisses off, like, the part of the reason the season 6 alliance blows up is because of Janelle, and it's because of her being manipulated by Will.
And is she not trying to get to the end game with Chilltown, like knowing
she does shot, and then she'll lose to Will, And I don't know about Boogie, but like she wasn't going to go to the end with Boogie because they would have both taken Will, and that's a terrible outcome for both of them. Which is why, it's like, what are we doing, everyone?
This is a plot armor pick. I'm sorry.
You got
It's a
that
very
plus like I mean, look, just like I
Janelle's
can
the
not
final
only
girl,
excuse
right? She gets to the end, and then she unfortunately doesn't survive.
I can excuse 22 for like what Amon's saying, you know, in some aspect, and also 14 because look, when you're Janelle and when you're playing these returnee seasons, not just like returnee seasons in general, but just like playing as the legend Janelle,
it wasn't
people are looking
fair.
at you
They were
from day
all
one.
going after her, and even the ones that were like smiling in her face and that they wanted to, like, I was so disappointed in Davon for not. Like Davon, you don't want to be on Janelle's side. I was so pissed off about that.
And even still, even with all of that, I mean, I can still
wouldn't
nitpick at BB22 where she's like so laser focused on Nicole. Like, forget Nicole.
But
There's
she
so
should
many...
have been. She should have been because Nicole was laser focused on her. If she would have got Nicole's out of that, like
to my memory,
would not have been what it was.
Unless, if you guys remember, she did not try once to salvage the relationship, and I know that it was probably at that point past the point of being salvaged. But Janelle's the one that needed to try so much more. What?
It was more Nicole
needed to try so much more. Come
but they're both.
Janelle needed to try more because she was in the far worse spot.
Nicole was never you cannot. Nicole was never ever going to be.
I mean, I agree. I am not disagreeing at all.
That is
Nicole never would. It wouldn't have worked. But like, if you want to succeed in BB22 with Nicole and all her allies, like I got to see you talking to her every day, being her new BFF.
No, you.
And that's just not something that she was ever going to do.
I disagree there. You get Nicole's ass out of there each and every time. You can.
I mean, sure. If she had the shot, she absolutely should have taken it. But when she obviously didn't have the shot for 3 straight weeks, be her BFF, and it's not going to work because neither one of them.
But that's also like just not. That's not Janelle's. A lot of her game isn't like.
No, of course not.
She's not super socially adaptable.
That's not no. She says, I'm going to gather some kind of group and we're going to go win and we're going to get the goal accomplished that we need to accomplish. And you missed that win. What happens?
Right. And she did. She missed that one win with Tyler in that beer throwing comp. I remember that one really well. Second behind Tyler.
Yeah,
that would have absolutely changed.
I absolutely could have seen Janelle going forward if it was just down to my vote in so many matchups. Like if it was, you know, I'm thinking even like the first 2 people that we pulled of the day, Michelle, who Peridiam just wants to talk about, Michelle versus Janelle, Christine versus Janelle. Like those are players who, you know, we were arguing back and forth, making cases for them or not. But like maybe the legacy of Janelle puts her through for me.
I'd probably pick her.
But when you're talking about Michelle, now I'm doing it, Janelle versus one of my favorite, most underrated winners who does not get enough credit and never will unless we all band together and make it happen.
Which we've already not done.
So if Amon's officially putting it on the record for Janelle.
I mean, it is what it is. She's going to win the battle back.
I'm putting my vote out there for Lisa and Peridiam.
Yeah, look, I've been on these streets for a while, and I've always kind of been like, one of the biggest understandings of the Big Brother game is understanding that Janelle is not that great. She's a great figurehead. She's great. She's iconic. I love her. Bring her back, whatever. But like, I'm going to be picking Lisa here. I'm sorry, Amon.
It's okay.
For me, I think it's just there's too many flaws in Janelle. Where bring Lisa back. I wish she could have played on All Stars. Where was that? Then we would have had a fair fight. I think this would have been a much fairer fight if we had Lisa. I think that
recency bias. I was looking into that too while we were talking about her. You know, because I guess at that point in time, Big Brother 3 was not super popular at the time, and they didn't want as many winners on there, and she would have had to take Mike Boogie's spot. But I guess Will was like, I'm not coming back unless Boogie comes back.
I know. So they give.
I just want to say, I don't think that'll be the last time we talk about Janelle.
Hell no.
Because she is Janelle and will come up in so many other conversations that we're going to have around here. But also, like Amon said, I would say she's a high candidate to get a lot of votes in our next battle back vote that we have and see if she makes her way back into round 2 via the vote. She may not. We could get bigger names or, you know, better players that actually are in that round, and maybe it's a tougher call, but I do think that she's a top contender in that. But as far as Lisa versus Janelle, Peridiam, you did make it official, right? You said Lisa.
I said Lisa. Yeah,
okay.
I said Lisa.
I'm just making sure. Lisa Donahue, BB3 winner going through, and Janelle evicted from the bracket as it now stands. What a world.
Brutal. That was fucking brutal.
I feel like I jinxed
spinning
it
again. for the
like-
final 2 players of the episode,
The Clay
who's it
Honeycutt.
gonna be?
No.
Oh, speaking of BB14,
Cara Monaco. Okay.
is it Cara or Cara?
Really?
I'm not doing this Cara or
I
again.
feel like I remember
That's a
people
quick one.
saying
7.
Cara.
Cara?
Is it Cara or Cara?
Cara?
I feel like I remember people saying Cara, but I don't.
That's
I
going to
don't
be
know
the
for
biggest
sure.
conversation point of this.
I'll go Cara. You guys
Cara?
go Cara.
Cara? I think I would say Cara if I had to pick, but
Let's say anything about her. For those who don't remember, this is our first technical, or not technical, technically second boot of BB14. First voted out of BB14. Aman, what do the notes say?
Cara, initially HOH Willie was planning on targeting Ian. However, when Mike won the coaches comp, he decided to save Ian. Willie's coach, Brittany, had formed an alliance with Janelle and her team. The new alliance decided to target Dan and Mike's strongest members. This led Willie to nominate Frank and Cara, with Cara as the target. Seeing a perfect chance to play the middle, Janelle and her team decided to turn on Brittany's team, and despite having a strong relationship with Will, he joined his team in voting out Cara. Ultimately, Cara was evicted by a vote of 5-3, placing 15th.
Now, she would have lost to Janelle.
I want to say I just
Thank you
rewatched
for
the
that.
episode. Her name is Cara.
Oh,
Cara. All right.
Cara.
I just pulled up the episode. I was like, let me see her introduction. She's like, hey, I'm Cara. I'm like, all right, it's
Oh.
Cara.
There we go.
Nice to meet you, Cara. If only we had more time with you on Big Brother 14. Okay, so not somebody we spend a lot of time with, which, you know, the wheel knew what we needed right now. It was a player to have not a whole lot to talk about. After all that we've gone through today. Also, fun fact of the day, if you're following along, paying attention, no men in this episode yet. We'll see if pick number 6 keeps that up. That's that. Okay. Cara.
Cara. She survived the day 1 boot.
Yeah.
Is she like for you guys? I feel like as I'm going through a couple seasons right now, there are so many players that fit into this category of like they just ended up on the block, did nothing wrong. Obviously, a lot of players will of course go home in that spot because Big Brother is about fighting your way off the block when you're on the block, and that is required to be a good player and stay in the house. And a lot of these players that I'm talking about in this category don't do that, and thus maybe
I do remember she was a victim of a little bit. She was being coached, right? Like they came in with these coaches. It was a huge twist. She may have received the biggest blowback other than Jody, but even then Jody wasn't the coach. She was just the format of that day 1 event where Cara was also technically nominated twice in 5 days. That's like a speedrun record there. She's getting nominated a lot. And then evicted on their second time. But she was being coached by Dan Giesling, who is, some say, the best player ever. And he basically instructed her to lay low because that's what his strategy was. And in that week, she was against Frank on the block, and she didn't survive. Frank survived, and it was a close vote. Like it was 5-3. So she got a bunch of votes. She had a potential to stay, but Frank was loud, and because of the dynamic of Willie being the HOH and being such a menace, Frank stood up as like, I will fight this force. And enough people were willing to use that to their advantage going forward, which also worked out because Frank won the next HOH. I don't know if Cara would have done that. And so they're just like, but Dan was also telling her, you need to lay low. We need to just we just lost Jody. Like, let's just chill, and then we'll come back later. But there was a lot of dynamics with the coaches between the women versus the men, with Brittany and Janelle versus Boogie and Dan. And they decided to put up one of Dan's players, one of Boogie's players. They wanted to get Ian out, but then Ian got randomly saved. Like there are a lot of ways that Cara, I hold a lot against her being the first person to really be evicted. Normally, besides Jody on day 1, I feel like there were a lot of things that didn't really just go in her favor, but she didn't do a lot. She almost did very little wrong to deserve that first eviction, that first vote out eviction.
It really does feel like for actual people that are playing Big Brother and everyone else is sort of like their little chess pieces. Because I didn't watch BB14 live, but I knew from jump without even being spoiled that those 4 bitches were going to be back in the game. I knew that. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
how long are we going to?
Only Boogie didn't know that. He's the
I
only
was like,
one.
yeah, exactly. I was like, how long are we going to keep up this charade? So yeah, I agree. I feel like now that I'm remembering, it really was sort of just like a case of like, yeah, like the girls team up, they try to get rid of people from Mike or Dan's team, and then it sort of just becomes a thing where it's like, who do we need? Like, who do we save from this team that is going to be a stronger ally? And you already kind of lost Jody because of the dumb twist, and now Frank is the only one that seems like he has any ability to win something. And on top of that, like there's this whole blow up with Willie. It just feels like he's more of a fighter, and you just want to get behind him, and he's a shield, whereas Cara is just sort of there. So yeah, she just got a really rough shake. Like Dan's team, just
I mean, they got
obliterated from jump.
I mean, 13 days played, 2 times nominated when you count that first week. Tough go there.
Yeah,
I think she got nominated on like
Gillian.
She got nominated like day 5 and day 1 technically. So it's like 5 days of being. She was on the block like her entire time, and there was like 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
It's like you get your key, and you're like you're on the block.
Obviously, very valid points about the Frank situation and why Frank maybe was kept rather than why Cara was sent home. But like again, in that week, we've seen many players, both extremely good players. I'm thinking like the Kevin Jacobs type players that like will survive and then thrive off of a spot like that, and then players who just will stay because they played well enough or they made enough connections to make it through, even up against a situation like that. Like there is always a way out, as many have said, or at least one person has said very famously, and you got to find that way. You don't, that's fine, but you just may not be the best Big Brother player of all time. So.
I remember Dan saying one of his biggest regrets. He had 5 big regrets, and one of them was week 1 with Cara. He gave her bad strategies. Like shit, that was the wrong way. I should have told her to be more aggressive. She was looking to me for advice. She didn't know the game super well, and it bit him in the butt. And I don't know. That's Cara's story for you.
Yeah. Not a big story, not a whole lot to get to there. So let's see if we have a worthwhile opponent for Cara. And if she makes it to round 2, I'll have to memorize and say her name.
This is the Janelle. I was like, what happened?
We have for our final matchup of the day, our final player of the day. Oops, all women. Monica Bailey.
Okay.
Wow.
Right, well.
This is my new favorite episode.
Yeah, femme fatale over here.
Let's go, Monica.
We have Monica from Big Brother 3 as our final player of the episode.
Big Brother 2.
Big Brother 2 as our final player of the episode.
I love Monica. All right, where is she? Why can't I find her thing?
The theme of this episode is yet again players who did not get voted back into BB7 in very tragic fashion.
Look at that theme. Or players who did.
Monica was best known in the house for her strong and outspoken personality. Her closest friendship in the house was with Krista, with whom she was a part of the Untouchables, though she also bonded with and was a member of the Other People. She was nominated next to Krista in week 6 by Nicole. 3 weeks after Krista's eviction, Monica ended up winning the HOH comp, which Will threw to her so she could nominate Nicole and Hardy, bonding the two. Will went on to cast the sole vote to evict Hardy, allowing Monica to make it to the final 3. She finished in 3rd place after Nicole chose to evict her over Will, as she believed Monica was too big of a jury threat. Monica was later one of the 20 candidates eligible to be voted back into BB7. However, she was not selected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good old Monica Bailey.
Crying shame.
Monica Bailey, not only has, not only was she unfortunately not voted back in BB7, but luckily for all of us, Monica has remained very much in the Big Brother community. Amon, I'm sure, has met her at a event because I know that she's been popping in and out of them for a while. I've met her at least once. She shows up at these NYC events. I don't know if Peridiam can make it 3 for 3 here, but no, unfortunately not. But just like a legend. So I'm trying to think of like the word beyond legend, like as far as like somebody that if you are a Big Brother fan, you think back to, you know, because BB2 is essentially the BB1 of, you know, the first true season of Big Brother that we all look back to, the Borneo of Big Brother in so many ways. And just one of the key people, characters, figures in that season that obviously makes it all the way through close enough to the end of the game, where she is just so memorable in so many different ways. Not only was she a game player in this early version of the game, she was a incredible character, has this tragic story along the end, as you know, of course 9/11 is going to take place during this season, and she had a family member in the at the site, I believe, and I think did lose that family member. There's just a lot to talk about when it comes to Monica.
Yeah, I've never met her before, but I've always held a good regard with her. I've always liked her. I rewatched Big Brother 2. It's one of my favorite seasons. And Monica's one of the more fun players to watch on that season. She's also one of the more likable players, which goes a long way because this cast was a lot of like mixed anti-heroes, I guess. She's almost an equivalent when we brought up Borneo. I was like, she almost is like in that Rudy spot where she's not like this strategic tour de force, but she is likable, that she would have beaten Will or Nicole in that final 2 if she had gotten there. She just had to get there.
Yeah.
And Rudy was the same way with Rich and Kelly, and she didn't get there, unfortunately. And I do think that in some ways Nicole probably made the right choice to take Will, even though I think Nicole was in a lose-lose with her. She had to take Dr. Will or Monica, lose to either of them. She viewed that Monica was probably the more likely winner, and so she went with Will. But in another reality, we get Monica as the very first winner of Big Brother, and we're this close to getting it. She was one competition away, and she's unlike Janelle, doesn't do a bunch of like manipulated. She didn't bumble through and fall backwards. She is in the majority alliance out of the gates with the other people. She is in a good spot. She doesn't really ruffle anyone's feathers as far as like the dynamic of that. There's a lot of people that ruffle each other's feathers that season. She is one of the least. And she's also just really fun TV. She's like, if you rewatch the episode, she's one of the people that I just find the most joy watching her, what she's got to do. I think obviously it's a very easy matchup when we're talking about her versus Cara. I think Monica can take it over a lot of players. And I think there's an argument for her to be one of the more underrated players in the history of the show. When you look at what season 2 has a lot of weird stuff. There's no veto, you know, stuff like that. Only nominations. That's all you got. She only wins one HOH, but like she wins it at the right time. She gets, you know, she does just enough where she could have been the winner. She was this close. And I think people would love to talk about her. She would definitely be more top of mind than where she finishes, unfortunately, in 3rd. So she's more of she's the 3rd, you know, whatever, to the Will and Nicole of it all. So.
And it's super interesting to just even close your eyes and imagine how BB7 would have gone, like how she would have fit into that house. Because I don't know, is she like going in instead of Chicken George as far as like old school?
Right. Well, they put in too many men. They put in one extra guy. So they take out George, put in Monica.
Yeah. So and I, you know, obviously there's other people from, or at least one other person from BB2 there, 2 other people from BB2 there. So it's not like she necessarily, but just like in terms of like that character appeal of an old school feeling player, I just would have loved to see her in that house.
I think she could have gone far.
I can't imagine why Will and Boogie would have wanted to not have her around.
I think they would have kept her. She had a good rapport with Will. She liked Will. From Big Brother 2. I think it'd be fine. I think she could have done well. I think she could have been the Chicken George spot in a way, but definitely have more win equity than Chicken George. Not like Chicken George. Chicken George was just a bump on a log. So
yeah, I think Monica is definitely not as lauded as I feel like she should be. I think a very, very strong social game, and part of it was because of the fact that she was so raw and real half the time, just very authentic, just like what you see is what you get, which, you know, even if it came off as like sort of like rough around the edges, it was so honest all the time that like you knew where you stood with Monica, which is why I feel like, there really weren't any ruffled feathers. Even if she did get into an argument once or twice, like it was kind of like, all right, well, that's that. Moving on. You know what I mean? Like she just sort of like walks with such a presence that is so very much like, this is me, take it or leave it, and it is what it is. You know, a decent HOH in getting rid of Hardy. I mean, he was winning comps left and right.
Biggest HOH getting Hardy out was the biggest buck in the game. Like getting him out was huge. She needed that.
Yeah, and I just think that yeah, I think that she had a pretty strong showing, and yeah, you know, you're right, very very close to being.
Mhm.
I think because I remember like when when we talk about Danielle Reyes a lot of the time, and even Danielle has been known to say like let's not forget about Monica. Like she played a fantastic game when it comes to like talking about like how Black women have done in Big Brother, especially like in the
Oh, yeah.
earlier seasons. Like Monica, her name really needs to come up a lot more. So yeah, I
She's
think
kind of, yeah, like the protege to what we ultimately see in Danielle Reyes, even though I don't think Danielle watched Big Brother 2 going into season 3.
mhm.
But Monica almost like she was this close to winning the game, and her honesty and her realness is what ultimately I think got her evicted. Because when you looked at the two, you got Dr. Will, who's kind of like devil incarnate or whatever, and then you've got Nicole, who is very hypocritical, and you have Monica, who is just real, and that's a hindrance. And I think
Yeah.
that cost her in an unfortunate way where she could have won.
Mhm.
I don't know what Will had said he would have evicted Nicole. I don't know if he would have though if he had won the final. He was
Yeah.
also in that. He was against Nicole in part 3, but I don't know.
I mean, look, we can't knock players, especially like a Monica, for just having a natural ability. That is what makes so many players good at what they do. And Monica's natural ability to be very social and very well liked amongst everybody else in the house, and also just her ability to have a brain, where plenty of people show up in Big Brother and just aren't able to, compute basic strategy of, the week to week of who to vote out in such a basic version of the game without the veto, or without thinking about backdoors, without thinking about any twists that come up of just like two people go up, somebody goes home, and just navigating that very basic concept of the game. Plenty of people have tried and failed. And Monica, had a good grasp on it. Like you guys were saying, she was in an alliance that was doing really well for her. She wins at a crucial time, and could have easily won the game. I think is absolutely everything you guys said. Just an all-time great. I'm so happy to see her go through to the next round, unless anybody is casting a vote the opposite
No,
direction.
the moment her name pops up, I'm like, all right, well, this is a done deal.
Yeah, look, I mean, sometimes it's fun again to have like first boot, something like that, or we can just give Monica or anybody else that comes in a spot like this an easy pass to the next round, and if that happens, it happens.
Hey, I think it was a nice spread of matchups. We got the first one was sort of like a nice, like crunchy one where there's a lot to debate. Second one was like, legendary character versus iconic winner. And then you have one sort of like layup. I think it's, you kind of run the gamut.
I like it. No, I thought that was great.
No men.
I was gonna say all women. Pretty fitting for what we're getting with the current Big Brother right now. Big Brother 26. So
let's recap what we did here today. If you just jumped in here for the final minutes of the episode for some reason, the first matchup we did have Big Brother 16, Big Brother 16's Christine advance to the next round over Big Brother 11's Michelle. Got evicted from the bracket. Tough matchup in the second one with two legendary players. The winner of Big Brother 3, Lisa Donahue, goes forward. And a legend falls, Janelle Pierzina, Big Brother 6, 7, 14, 22, not Reindeer Games. She'll be on Reindeer Games if there's another one. Amazing Race, Traders, list goes on and on, is evicted here in a spot. Tough matchup for her. If you're upset, become a patron, get that vote in. And in our final matchup of the day, we have Big Brother 2's Monica Bailey advancing over BB 14's Cara. Peridiam. But that's the results of the day. I thought we had another good set of 3 matchups. I think we all feel good about what we accomplished today. So
pretty decent.
Peridiam, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. I wonder if we set the longest record for the podcast. I don't know, maybe 140.
I think so.
Maybe. No, absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. This was a lot of fun. I mean, we've been talking for weeks about trying to get on, and I was just like, it's definitely got to happen.
It was my fault that it took this long.
No, it was also my fault, because if I was a little more available, we would have done this weeks ago. I was just a very up in the air with my schedule, and I know we talked, Matt, over a month ago, I think.
Yeah.
So it was just I definitely wanted to do it, and I was glad when you were like, "What time?" I was like, "Let's do it. Let's do it tomorrow.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's go for it."
And
if you ever want me to come back, I'm down to come back.
We will.
Oh yeah, you will be back.
So, but no, absolutely appreciate it. It was fun.
Thank you again, Peridiam. Wait, you didn't. We mentioned at the top, but where can everybody find all the
YouTube?
content?
Always been YouTube 7 years now. Seventh anniversary is this week.
Wow.
YouTube.com/Peridiam. Big Brother, Survivor, whichever one's on the air, I will be talking about it every Wednesday or Thursday. And that's it. It's what it's always been. It's what it'll hopefully always be. We'll see.
There we go. Aman, where can people place their votes? Did we get the link memorized yet for these battle backs and anything else we have going on? A little bonus stuff.
Patreon.com/the diary room.
The diary room.
A diary room. It was available. It's ours. It's 3 simple words. Patreon.com/
dairy room.
The diary room. If you'd like to support the podcast, support us, and have access to a whole lot of bonus content. Anytime that there is a battle back vote, we also do a result show where we tell you exactly what the vote breakdown was. So if Janelle does or doesn't get voted back in a couple episodes time, we'll let you know how all that shakes out. Losers bracket, we take all the people who do lose. So Michelle, Janelle, and Cara will all go into that next bracket, and we'll pull an ultimate loser from that batch, and it's a lot of fun. So good stuff over there. Get in the group chat, and you can chat with us each week about the matchups and anything else going on. Find out who the guests are coming on ahead of time. Good stuff happening over there. And also what you can do for completely free is subscribe to the podcast, both here and on your podcast feeds. Throw the video a thumbs up. Do all that fun stuff. Leave us a 5-star review in the podcast feeds as well if you can do all that. Aman, what's going on for you?
You can follow me everywhere at Aman Adwin. I'm still over at RHAP talking all threes BB26. I have recently gotten back in. Over. Oh my god, yeah, it is at this point. Oh damn. Well, never mind. You can't find me there anymore. But Drag Race will be starting up very, very soon. So you'll find me over there. As always, and I'm recently back on Twitch, so same. I'm on Adwin over on Twitch as well, so check me out over there.
There we go. I'm on Twitter at Matt Ligori. Check out the Free Agents podcast for myself and Brian Scally, recapping all things The Challenge. Check out the Dancing with the Stars coverage over on RHAP with myself and Sasha Joseph. It's been a fun season so far, so that is kicking throughout the rest of this fall. And I think that's it for now. So thank you again, Peridiam, for joining us. We'll be back very soon, but Aman, get us out of here.
Thanks once again to Peridiam for joining us. And until next time, please go to the diary room.